this doesn't even deserve an intro song because this is dead serious. I want everything about Rekieta's house on the internet now, chat. Okay, I was instructed by Rekieta that I am supposed to tard rage on stream today. And so tard rage I will. Here is the update. So yes, rough one. So here's what happened. Just in brief. 3 people were meant to go to the courthouse today to finalize their notes. So we would have 3 notes from 3 different women for both videos. And because right now we have partial notes for one of the videos and complete notes on one of them. However, at the last second, literally the prosecutor filed something yesterday, and in the first hour that the court was open, the judge suppressed the evidence, which was already entered into evidence, and the women received a prompt email minutes after it was filed saying that they would no longer have access to the footage today if they showed up at court. So, to clarify, the body cam footage was entered into evidence, and it was entered into evidence by Rekieta because Rekieta was hoping to prove that April was not properly Mirandized, but she was properly Mirandized, and this was important because Rekieta attempted to assert that April was not a resident of their home, but a guest, so that her possessions would not be his possessions, which could be the case if she was a resident of the home. April told the officer explicitly, and after being Mirandized, that she had been living there for a month and was therefore a resident of the home, and her possessions were possessions that belonged to the household. So it is an incredible move, and it happened extremely fast. So we will be suing the county of Kandiyohi County to get the body cam footage because we have gone through a very rigorous process in order to obtain authorization to get it. And here's what we did. When we realized that the body cam footage had been entered into evidence by Rekieta, we asked the judge for we asked the sheriff to release it. The sheriff said he would not release it. Now, ordinarily, things like the body cam things entered into evidence could just be retrieved from the court. There's no issue retrieving any other document entered into court as public record. But the body cam footage features his children. Very brief. They're not there throughout the entire video, but they are there. So in order to release them into the public under Minnesota data law, they have to be censored. And it is the responsibility of the Kandiyohi County Sheriff's Office to censor the depictions of minor persons in the evidence and to release it to us. The sheriff said no. The sheriff said he would not do that, even though it was released into evidence. So we then petitioned the judge to make a declarative statement that the evidence, the body cam footage, was evidence, and therefore it was public record. We have received this. Judge Wetzel, who is also the same judge as in the criminal case, issued an administrative order clarifying that the body cam footage was public record and therefore it should be released. We sent the judge's court order to the sheriff asking that the body cam footage be released as he said it should be, and the sheriff said, I will not be complying with the court order, which is just an absurd statement that actually was so shocking to us that Hardin had to reach out for several other opinions just to make sure he hadn't completely lost his fucking mind and he wasn't witnessing the sheriff actually saying that he was not going to comply with a court order because what the fuck. So after that happened, we considered suing. However, a law firm, a big law firm that Hardin knew, sent a letter to the sheriff and said, what are you doing? And after that, they got into contact. The sheriff actually knew this law firm, so they reached out. And we decided to contact the Minnesota Department of Administration. And we did this for a specific reason. Statutorily, if the government of Minnesota is doing something wrong and you sue them, you can win attorney's fees if certain things are in your favor. However, if you contact the Minnesota Department of Administration and you get them to issue an opinion that you are in the right and the government still ignores itself and does not do what the opinion says to do, you are mandatorily awarded attorney's fees, meaning there is no discretion for the judge to consider. He must, under state law, issue you your attorney's fees. So we went to the Minnesota Department of Administration, and we asked them to clarify if the sheriff was bound to his own court. And the Minnesota Department of Administration said yes, he should comply with this. We sent this letter to the sheriff, who said, okay, give me until June 2nd to respond. So we decided we would wait until June 2nd before suing, but if he did not respond by June 2nd with the body cam footage or with a timeline that he would release it to us, we would be suing the Kandiyohi County Sheriff because we were mandatorily awarded attorney's fees. So it's basically free to sue him. Today is May 30th, and on May 29th, so 4 days before he was going to issue his response to us, as he promised, the prosecutor in the case filed a motion with the court under Judge Wetzel, the same Wetzel as before, saying that he wanted this evidence suppressed because it wasn't technically entered into record, which is a false statement. It was used as evidence to make important decisions about if somebody was Mirandized or not, as a result of Rekieta's own filings. The judge, the next day, approximately an hour and 50 minutes ago, and an hour after court opened, less than an hour, 51 minutes after court opened, not only approved his motion, but entered it into the docket and got the county clerk to tell the women that were going to visit this morning that they should not come, which is a level of alacrity that you never see in any level of the judicial system, which means that the prosecutor personally walked this to the judge and said, I need this signed right the fuck now because they're about to intervene. And it's much harder to undo something that has happened in court than it is to intervene immediately and to stop it from happening in the first place. So they did. And now we're going to have to sue anyways and undo the thing that already happened, which is a losing position. But it theoretically, under the rules of law, it is actually possible and actually likely. But it is an incredible circumstance. It is unbelievable that this is actually what happened. And it's it really makes you wonder, like, what the fuck and why. So I would like to say that if you go to the Kiwi Farms right now, there's a post. I'm actually going to feature this on the front page right now since I have working internet again. Let me remove this, and then I'll globally feature this, and so people can find it. Let's see. The notes for the Rekieta body cam footage are now public, and I'll feature this. So you can read along if you would like. I am going to go through the notes together with you live on stream, but if you have no interest in listening to me talk, you can go ahead and read those notes right now by yourself. I don't judge you for it. If you are a streamer and you want to boot up the notes and read them, I should clarify that the notes on officer. So here's the issue, and here's why I'm a little bit peeved by this. Like, admittedly, I was shocked that the prosecutor filed his thing. I am actually irritated that it happened so quickly because we had 3 volunteers to go do this. One of them is a busy woman who is a student and did not have the opportunity to come up immediately. And as a matter of fact, the woman who is the only woman that keeps the schedule for the entire county court, apparently, had a very busy schedule as well, and there were only certain days that people could come. So they would have all gone the first week when we figured out that this happened, but the schedule was so tight that that couldn't be arranged. So even the scheduling of the court were slanted in a way to give as much time as possible. But all 3 women were supposed to go. So we had woman A, who is an anonymous user. I know who she is, but she is just a mother. She has her own kids, and she's not a Kiwi Farms user, but she's aware of Rekieta because Rekieta was super famous, right? So she volunteered to go and received word that I was looking for somebody to go through word of mouth from other people. She went and she saw the entire body cam footage by Officer Pomplin, who was the one who interviewed Rekieta. And so her note is complete. The second woman who also attended the omnibus hearing is Tiki Man 2 on the Kiwi Farms. She went, and because of severe technical difficulties at the courthouse, despite being there for several hours, she was only, I think, 5+ hours. She was only able to capture, I think, the first hour plus of the hour 45-minute view of Robbie, who was the second video cam footage. The first woman then went back to the courthouse and tried to watch Robbie's video. They also had severe technical difficulties and only got the first 45 minutes, I want to say, of the video. Actually, I think it was a little bit longer. I think she got an hour and the other woman got like an hour and a half of the footage. So there is no complete description of Officer Robbie, which is unfortunate because I think there's a part where he's digging through a closet looking at sex toys and stuff from his perspective. The third woman did not get to go. She was meant to go today. All three of them were meant to go today and watch both videos over many, many hours and take complete notes and have all three of the footage, all three testimonies of both body cam footages. The alacrity of the court has eliminated that. So I do have the complete notes for Pomplin. I have 2 partial notes for Officer Robbie. I have the first woman is transcribing her handwriting into digital format, so I'll release that third note as well. It is a little bit upsetting that we didn't get 3 as I had wanted, but the body cam footages, based off the notes of the first 2 women, are very similar, and they include the details that are most interesting anyways. So I'm just going to go ahead and read through the notes, I guess. So if you want a little read along, I'm sorry that the stream was so delayed and so shitty, but it seems like it's stable now. So we're going to go ahead and just read through it. And as I mentioned, if you don't want to listen to me, you do not have to, obviously. They are on the Kiwi Farms, and you can read them at your own leisure, if so desired. Okay. So this is the first PDF. This is the body cam footage notes by Officer Pomplin, or of Officer Pomplin's perspective, by the woman who is not a Kiwi Farms user and who is just some random person who I believe wants to remain anonymous. So she starts off with the audio note. There are sound issues throughout the footage. The volume was originally set to 100% and was so loud and distorted that most of the early dialogue was incomprehensible. So the way that they viewed this, from my understanding, is that they had to lease a jury room. And so they would wheel out, like, if you remember in school, they had those rolling things with like a giant monitor on them and like a KVM to manage it. It was like that. And it was apparently like the worst fucking like Hicktown setup possible. And the woman supervised her for the first 20 minutes. And then after she left, she had access to the computer. So she adjusted the audio so that it was listenable and could rewind. So this is going to be the most complete notes that we're going to get. Even after turning it down to 8%, there are still problems inhering due to background noise, a barking dog, overlapping voices, radio chatter, and Pomplin's movement. Some of the dialogue is paraphrased to the best of my ability. Camera note, this video is from Officer Pomplin's body camera. He moves around a lot and rarely stays in one place for long, so the footage can be jumpy and hard to follow. That, combined with the noise and clutter, adds to the chaos. So I believe that the belief was that Pomplin was the guy in charge, and he seems to be all over the place, like talking to the forensic squad, talking to the officer managing the family, talking to Rekieta himself. So he seems to be the top dog in the sheriff's department. So let's start. They enter at 9:15 to 9:33, or enter at 9:15. The video begins with the officers ramming the front door. Very, very cinematic, very Kino. As they enter, the first thing you see is a scared child. The house is extremely filthy. The floors are covered in clothes and junk. In some areas, there is no walkway at all. You actually have to walk on stuff to move through the space. Countertops are stacked with random items, and liquor bottles are everywhere. The filth and hoarding are immediate and overwhelming. The mess you see in Nick's kitchen, where he shows it on stream, is nothing compared to the rest of the house. There is one space, clearly staged. It's obvious he only cleans the visible area specifically for streaming. Kayla and April are brought out of the house and led outside. A dog can be heard barking in the background. I don't know if it's in this notes, but apparently that dog is locked into the master bedroom's bathroom for some reason. Officers call a child who is downstairs. The kids are being removed from the house while the search begins. One of the officers goes downstairs to remove the youngest child. She comes up holding the officer's hand. She speaks to him, but the audio was unclear due to the background noise. As they head to the door, she pauses to pick up the cat so she can take it outside with her. The search continues. A nitrous tank is visible in the house. Nick can be heard outside yelling, "Get out of my house." He says something about probable cause and a search warrant. He sounds indignant. Officer Pomplin walks out of his squad car to get gloves. As he returns, the camera catches all the kids sitting on the ground outside with Kayla. They are huddled against the house. The scene is heartbreaking. Kayla is taken back inside and searched. Officer Pomplin enters a bedroom, and this is what I mean. All three of the adults are sequestered off to different areas and interviewed separately. So if ideally we would have 3 body cam footages, one the officer talking to Kayla, one of the officer talking to April, and one of Officer Pomplin, so that we could see what they told the officers. But we have Robbie and Pomplin, which is April and Rekieta, respectively. Officer Pomplin enters a bedroom where other officers are photographing drugs and paraphernalia found on top of a red mini fridge. The cuck fridge is in the footage. The fridge is being used as a nightstand. So the other footage, which other notes that I'll read, talk about this, but apparently the room that is inside the Rekieta house, the master bedroom, where Rekieta, April, and Kayla were sleeping, is a straight shot from the front door. So you walk through the front door and you're in the main living space, and then there's the master bedroom right there. And my understanding is that from the other perspective, which I'll get into, that you can actually see a bullet with cocaine in it from the front door, because it's like a straight shot from the entrance of the house into their bedroom. In the cuck fridge sits right there, and on top of it was the cocaine. So they literally walked into the house and in plain view saw the bullet of cocaine immediately. I think that gets into it, but they begin photographing evidence inside Nick's streaming room. The room is far smaller than expected, and the condition is much worse than anything seen on stream. There are bottles of alcohol everywhere. The entire space is buried under hoarded junk, electronics, collectibles, and random gear. His 5 monitor setup and other equipment are visible, but everything around it is chaotic. The curated background people see during streams is a total facade. They go through a bag full of brown glass bottles, each one wrapped in tissues. I believe that these bottles that were on his desk contain an unknown brown viscous substance that they never identified. But I think Nick now claims that it was DMT. So like on his streaming setup is DMT. This was consistent from both notes, that there is basically, if you just imagine like a box that contains everything that the webcam is showing on stream, that box is immaculately kept for his streams, but everything else in that room is a fucking garbage heap. Both notes mention this explicitly. And I should mention that this woman and Tiki Man did not communicate at all. They had never spoken to each other at all. They didn't have one didn't have a forum account, so they didn't meet up. The first woman did not go to the omnibus hearing. They had never met each other until I don't think they even talked to each other until the day before, because they were all going to go see the hearing together. And I put them in contact literally like 10 p.m. last night. An officer enters and informs them that cocaine was found in the bedroom where Kayla and April had come out earlier. Some of the officers meet up in the entryway and brief each other on the situation. One mentions that Nick is trying to ask them questions instead of answering theirs. Another officer says he needs to get statements, figure out who lives in the house, and call family services. The audio was unclear due to the background noise, so the dialogue here is paraphrased to the best of my ability. Officer Pomplin goes back into the master bedroom, where officers are still going through the red fridge being used as a nightstand. He then heads outside to talk to Nick for the first time, at least from what's visible at this camera angle. Pomplin tells Nick, "We want to ask you some questions, a quick interview. We want to get an idea of the layout of the house, where the nanny is at, and who all stays here." Nick immediately pushes back and asks, "What is your probable cause?" Pomplin replies, "You have the search warrant." So unfortunately, we did not get the nice perspective of the officer handing Nick Rekieta the search warrant, which he then huffs at and throws on the ground. Because he was talking about what he experienced, and he was stopped at a stop sign by a different officer and given the warrant. So him complaining about probable cause to the police officer is very silly, because they have a warrant. He knows they have a warrant. He doesn't need probable cause. He has a fucking warrant at this point, okay? So he's not searching on probable cause alone. He's searching because he has a warrant issued by a judge to search the house. Nick stands there with his arms crossed. He's calm but looks like shit. He says, "Cool, you have no probable cause." Pomplin asks, "Are you willing to talk with me?" Nick responds, "Sure," then immediately adds, "You have no probable cause." Nick is a lawyer who has repeatedly said on stream, by the way, that he never talked to cops, and here he is talking to cops, and this actually will bite him in the ass when we get a little bit down. Pomplin says, I'm not discussing that. You have been given the search warrant. You know how this works. Nick again says something about probable cause. Nick has read his Miranda rights. They begin questioning him about the children and the other adults in the home. Pomplin confirms Kayla is his wife and then asks about the other woman. Nick gives April names and says she's a friend. He says she does not reside there. Very important. This is probably one of the most important things in the entire notes because it not only is important to Nick's criminal case, but it's also important to why this is evidence to begin with. Pomplin tells him she came out of the bedroom. Nick replies, okay, so she came out of the bedroom. Pomplin says, when I have people over, they don't go in my bedroom. Nick snaps, I don't give a shit what you do. Pomplin stays calm and says, I'm just asking questions. Nick tells him, no, you're not. You're making statements. Pomplin asks, where do you stay in the residence? Nick says, all over. It's my home. Pomplin asks, do you stay in the master bedroom? Nick says, when I'm there, I stay in there, sure. Pomplin asks, is that where you sleep at night? Nick says, yes. Pomplin responds, that's all I needed to know. That is the typical conversation with Nick Rekieta. If in case you're wondering, that is exactly how he is all the fucking time. He's a shape-shifting fucking rat. He's like slime between your fingers. That's every that's not just him talking to police. That's what his wife asking him what he wants at McDonald's is like. You know what I want at McDonald's? Oh, well, what do you mean? What do you want at McDonald's? Like, well, do you want the burger? Do you want this? Like, I've already been through this. You know what I want? And it's like, come on, bro, just answer the fucking question. He then asks, do you want to tell me where things are in the house to help expedite the search? Nick says, where what things are? Pomplin says, you saw the warrant. We're looking for controlled substances. Nick says, I'm not admitting to anything. That's ridiculous. You still have no probable cause. Pomplin says, we're going to be searching the house. We're going to be contacting family services. Nick asks, why? Pomplin says, because we've already found cocaine in the house. Nick just stares at him. As I mentioned, they literally walk through the fucking door, and in the master bedroom, which is a straight shot from the entrance area, there's the cuck fridge with the cocaine. So they're coming into the house looking for cocaine. Lo and behold, right on the fridge, in plain view of everyone, including anybody else residing in that house, there is the cocaine. So he's a little bit upset. I think he thought that his cocaine safe was going to protect him. Unfortunately, Kayla and April were having a little bit of fun before, here at 9 a.m., just a little bit of casual wake and bake, I think is the proper term. A little wake and bake with some cocaine. And unfortunately, their breakfast was rudely interrupted by these Scandinavian prudes searching through the house. Pomplin adds, we're not here on a whim. Pomplin says, yes, you are. Nick says, yes, you are. Pomplin says, no, we're not. Nick repeats, yes. Very productive conversation. Nick tells him, we came here looking for controlled substances. We were only in the house about 10 minutes and we already found some. Nick responds, I don't know anything about it. Nick says something about family services and mentions the grandparents. Pomplin tells him that's most likely what will happen, but family services has to be involved. We'll put them with a family member if we can. Nick and April are both handcuffed in the driveway facing each other. It's almost cinematic. Sweaty, the word that we use in my industry is kino. April is looking at him with a pouty face and puppy dog eyes. She's wearing black cutoff shorts and a black long sleeve crop top. As Nick, by the way, there's a funny thing about her outfit that's in the other notes. As Nick is being walked into the squad car, he tells the officer, I hope you catch gonorrhea and die. This is the words of a 40-something-year-old father of 5. He's being arrested for cocaine possession and in his biggest grumpy boy voice possible, being put into a squad car, he says, I hope you catch gonorrhea and die. Truly somebody in Arrested Development. Before putting him in the vehicle, they stop to photograph the sores on his arms. He has a lot of them. Nick asks, are you going to arrest my wife too? Pomplin tells him yes, but we're going to have her stay with the kids until family services and the grandparents get here. Nick is visibly seething. Pomplin says, I'll come and talk to you when we're done and at the jail. The audio was unclear due to the background noise, so I couldn't hear Nick's response. Pomplin then walks away from Nick and over to April. He introduces himself, explains what's going to happen, and tells her that she's going to jail, and asks if she has any questions and whether she's been Mirandized. April says no, but I want to ask. Pomplin interrupts to confirm that she has been read her Miranda rights. She has. He has been asking her questions. Now, this is the point of contention. I will circle back to this. He begins asking her questions. Pomplin, how long have you been here? April says, not that long, maybe a month. I'm trying to find my own place. Pomplin says, so you've been living here? April says, yep. So this is immediately Nick lying to the police. who said, no, she does not live here. He talks to her, and the very first words out of her mouth are, I live here. Yup. So that's his issue. Because I imagine what he was hoping to do is put the blame on her and just say, like, that was all her drugs. I don't know this crazy lady. Unfortunately, she immediately confirmed to them upon being asked questions that she had been living there for a month. Pomplin says, you came out of the bedroom with Kayla, right? April says, yes. Pomplin says, were you hanging out in there? April says, yes. Pomplin says, what were you doing in there? April says, Kayla was sleeping and I was changing clothes. Pomplin tells her they're executing a narcotics search warrant. April shakes her head no, as if she's confused, in disbelief, or pretending not to understand. Another officer asks, you were changing clothes in there? April says, yes. He follows up, you keep stuff in there? April says, yes. What kind of stuff could she keep? You know, sex toys, cocaine, some crop tops, that kind of stuff that's important to determining who owns what in the house. At that point, another officer walks up holding 2 pairs of shoes. He puts one pair down on the ground, and April looks at them and says, those are not mine. The officer apologizes and says, sorry, there's a lot. There's a lot of fucking shit in that house. I'll try to find you some other shoes. April looks at the other pair still in his hand and says, those are mine. He places, this is like the sentences that you would learn when you're trying to learn Spanish or something. It's like, those are my zapatos. You know, it's like those are like the test sentences that you learn when you're trying to understand grammar and possessives and stuff. He places them on the ground. They're slip-on sandals with straps. April tries to put them on while handcuffed as they continue to ask her questions. They ask where she sleeps when she's staying at the house. April says, sometimes I sleep in the sunroom. There's a couch in there. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, so I sleep next to Kayla on the bed. She interrupts to ask for help putting on her sandals. The officer bends down and helps get them on her feet. By the way, Kayla is the only person who didn't talk to the police, which is, I imagine, why there's no body cam footage of a cop talking to her, because there was no, she was the only person competent enough under the pressure to shut her fucking mouth. One of the officers says something about controlled substance search warrants, and that, I'll let you think about that. April shakes her head no again, clearly overwhelmed or confused. They tell her that she's being charged with 5th-degree felony controlled substance offense. April reacts, oh my God. The officer says, we'll go from there. Any questions for me? April responds, no, I wouldn't know what to ask. Like I said, this is, she pauses, scary. He tells her, we'll meet up later and try to make it more clear for you, then places her in the squad car. At 9:47, Kayla refuses to speak. Oh, sorry, this is the subtitle area. This is 30 minutes into the footage. A female cop holding a big gun. So apparently, Rekieta's testimony that they did show up with weapons drawn is accurate, but he said that they didn't point it at anybody. So they did have cops with rifles ready to go in case there was like some narcotics coming in. The cop with the big gun is mentioned a couple times. This is a very tragic sentence, by the way. A female cop holding a big gun says Kayla refuses to speak without her attorney present. Kayla and the kids are sitting on the ground against the house behind the cop. Kayla is sitting with her head on her oldest daughter's shoulders. It is a heartbreaking scene. As Officer Pomplin is walking away, I hear the female cop say, I'm going to try and get her some clothes. It's unclear who she's referring to. As Officer Pomplin walks through the disgusting house, you can hear him let out a huge sigh as he looks at everything. He puts on some gloves. He gets into the bedroom and asks, are we still going through things in here? She says that there's a hard time understanding the response because the dog in the bathroom is still barking very loudly. The officer goes back to his car to get something. He drinks some Mountain Dew. Hell yeah. This is a country boy up here. He drinks some Mountain Dew and gets some snuff. Oh man, this guy is proper fucking country. This is a good old boy right here. On his way back in, he passes Kayla and the kids again. He has interactions with another cop that I don't quite understand. Somebody says something about the house being huge. He heads back to his car, again looking for something, couldn't see what it was. On his way back, and one of the other cops is talking to the kids, obviously trying to make them comfortable. After he gets inside, again, the audio is hard to understand between background noises, radio chatter, and the dog barking. You hear a conversation about drugs, firearms, and finding the 22 shell casings. Officer Pomplin starts writing down a list of evidence found. The evidence is, because I guess he's writing this in front of his body cam, number 1, snort tube found on the nightstand fridge tested positive for cocaine. There are 4 cops searching the room. Officer Pomplin heads back to the squad car to retrieve evidence bags. Kayla is not sitting with the kids at this time when he passes. Officer Pomplin starts logging evidence again. A glass vial that tested positive for cocaine on the nightstand. 2 credit cards with April's name on them. All of this evidence is from the top of the Kuksh fridge or nightstand, which is covered in a bunch of miscellaneous junk like a Celsius can, a couple candles, a spray bottle of something, maybe lube, and an unframed picture of Nick and Kayla laying on top of other junk. One of the officers picks up a bottle of pills and says, this is paraphrased from memory, I wasn't able to hear what he said verbatim, something like, I found one of the kids' prescriptions right next to the cocaine. It has the name Celeste on it. And as she mentions here, the cops are mistaken. Celeste is Nick's mom. Is she giving him drugs or did he steal it from them? So Celeste is Nick's mom, and they're confused because they assume that one of the kids is named Celeste and their prescription is found in his room. But no, his mother's medication is found on a nightstand next to his bed. Where the drug paraphernalia is. So it appears to be that either Celeste is giving him drugs or he is stealing prescription medication from his own parents and snorting them with his mistress in the house. They look at the two casino player cards with Nick and Kayla's names on them and take pictures of them. He turns to the other cops to see what they have found. A cop pulls a paper bag out of the armoire and starts taking the stuff out of it. It sounds like he said something about a meth pipe, and then other cops ask if they're used. He says this one looks dirty unless it's brown glass. You can hear a cop say something about the spent 22 shell casings on the floor. One of the other cops finds pipes and bongs. They think they're unused. The dog is still in the washroom barking. Pomplin finally says, we've got to do something about that dog. Officer Pomplin documents in his report the big gun that was found under the bed. Pomplin continues processing and logging the evidence. He is still in the bedroom where the red fringe and nightstand is located. There is movement and chatter as the officers go through the items. It's a mix of searching, bagging, and documenting. The audio is difficult to make out, clearly because of the overlapping voices, barking, and background noise. One of the officers says they found edibles. Another holds up what looks like a grinder and says it contains a white powder. They said they're going to test it. You can hear, so this is 45 minutes in. You can hear a child back in the house. Pomplin is documenting more evidence, a metal container and two glass ones with powder. A female comes in asking about taking something to the jail for Kayla. One of the officers finds something under the bed. Officer Pomplin asks, what's that? It sounds like the officer says something about the Supreme Court license. I couldn't make out that word. I'm not sure what that could be, because I don't think Rekieta is admitted to the Supreme Court bar unless it's the Minnesota Supreme Court bar. He asked about the other cops. Did you see Nick's arms? Track marks all down. He says be cognizant of the possibility of finding needles, then says they could be sores. They mentioned Nick passed... Oh, they passed Nick in the car, so the squad car passed Nick on the way to the house. Another cop comes in and says they're interviewing the mom right now. Pomplin says, we're going to be a while. They discuss areas they want to search through thoroughly. The master bedroom, 2 studios, the inner and outer vault studio area. He calls the studio Nick's lair. I will jump ahead to the other, because this is my favorite part of the entire thing, by the way. At 10:06, the officer decides to split up the team. This is the other notes. He's leaving the bedroom to the other areas because he wants to go down to test Nick's studio. One of the other officer calls it his little lair. So chat, here is my request. Only refer to Nick's studio as the little lair now, because that is one of the funniest things from the entire thing. They discuss what cops will be doing and what to search. Officer Pomplin says we need to do our due diligence for the kids, doing all we can. Oh, chat, somebody cared. Somebody in the county cared. They are waiting for the kids and the dog to be picked up. They're splitting the cops up, 3 upstairs and the others downstairs. They discuss April's purse, ID, etc. They left it because there was cash in it. Officer Pomplin leaves 3 cops searching the bedroom, and he starts walking towards the front door. He says something about a lot of stuff being in the studio. You can see Kayla with what appears to be 2 family service workers at the front door. Officer Pomplin goes downstairs. It looks like a family room with a fireplace, some arcade games, a drum set, and other kid stuff. The section is outside the area that leads to Nick's studio. As he goes into the little lair, he passes through a small library-type room with lots of books and random things on the bookshelves. It appears that Nick's studio is like through a little like cubby area. So there's like a small study, and then it leads to his lair. So it's a very strange setup. I'm not sure if that's like an extension or what, but I'm trying to picture that in my head, and it seems like it's like how you would hide a room in like a big mansion. So it goes into the streaming room. Someone mentions vials and something about homemade whiskey. Officer Pomplin opens a Ziploc bag and pulls out a small box that looks like it has a picture of food on it. It looks like something you'd see out of the frozen food section. He then pulls out different vials. One of them has brown substance on it and says that one of them has brine written on it. I think that the consensus is, and it's more audible in the other footage, is that the unknown dark substance that's like scattered throughout his room that they thought might be DMT or something. Um, I think that what they decide is um, what one of the other officers says is that it might be a whiskey moonshine kit or something. He says the one looks like it has a whole pepper in it, and the comments says that's weird. He pulls out a bag of seeds. Again, they say something about the possibility of being homemade whiskey or something. Yeah. Officer Pomplin starts going through a small pile of papers. He looks at a handwritten letter. I took notes on it because it was weird and confusing. It was about a father and a daughter and said things like, a dad admits selfishness in crisis, a dad getting all the shit but no praise, and the daughter practiced her song just for her dad. This appears, from my understanding, this sounds like poetry. Like Nick got really fucked up on something and started doing poetry about how he wasn't appreciated enough. It's truly bizarre. After Googling, I found out that it's about a South Korean horror film called Train to Busan. So I don't know what the fuck is what's going on in the house where he's like doing poetry about Train to Busan. The next piece of paper is from the county, the Department of Environmental Services, something about building a shed. So he's still trying to get that cuck shed built, that sex dungeon, working on it very studiously. The next thing is a signed anime picture that looks exactly like this. Oh, she attached a picture, and it was just some like still from an anime. The next is an autograph picture of Eric Rowland. It's signed, "Here's looking at you, Nikki." It has lipstick print on it like this, and says, "P.S. Look here," with an arrow pointing to the button area of his shirt. Next is a piece of unopened certified mail to Kayla with writing on the envelope. He then finds a cardboard box with question marks drawn on it in marker. He opens it, and inside there's a ton of shredded paper. He rummages through it and finds something that he thinks might have been a big mushroom. He then asks the other cop, and the cop says no. Officer Pomplin smells it and puts it back. So they found a mysterious mushroom or something, and the cop is like, "Mushroom?" And he's like, "No, no mushroom." Then he smells it anyways for good measure and puts it back. I hope it was nothing nefarious. Another cop comes in. He has a safe that he found under the bathroom sink in the master bathroom. It is a briefcase type safe that's locked, but it has part of a baggie hanging out of it. Oh my god. So his master plan, by the way, one of his big contentions is that the officer who does open it, and he opens it on camera, officer erred in opening that safe. He had no reason to open that safe. The safe was not a part of the search warrant, so he shouldn't have opened it. But there's a fucking baggie hanging outside the safe. So even if the search warrant was, you have a search warrant for the entire house, which is what it said, but no safes, if it explicitly said that, he would still have probable cause to open the safe because the last person who opened it did such a shitty job of closing it. There's drugs hanging out of the fucking lid. They were able to test the part that had been sticking out, and it tested positive for cocaine. Just test the safe for cocaine. Rekieta really thought that he was going to get everything in the safe thrown out of evidence, as if it didn't test positive for cocaine. Incredible. The officer leaves to go back, and they ask for the key. He gets a quick phone call and asks Kayla for the key. She is with 2 family service workers. He tells her, "We need the key or we're going to have to break it open." She says she doesn't know where it is. Well, chat, it's time for Officer Pomplin to smash. They go outside. The kids are still sitting on the ground. The cop walks behind the vehicles and breaks open the safe with what looks like a pry bar and a mallet. So Officer Pomplin says, "Give me the key." She said, "I ain't getting no key." He's like, "Okay, I smash." And he did indeed, in fact, smash box. The safe is full of drugs, paraphernalia, and baggies. They take a photo and say, "Let's get it to a better location." On their way back to the house, another officer mentions that the grandparents are on their way. They take the safe to a small bathroom, place it on the toilet, and open it. There's a baggie that says KKK on the outside. They surmise that it is ketamine. It's actually condensed racism. There's another a digital scale, snort tubes, and a metal piece that looks like a crack pipe, and another metal item that looks like a spoon without the handle. Another cop, he asks for another cop and says, "This is insane." His glove rips and he needs a new one. He says that he thinks one is ketamine, and the bites are either Molly or LSD. They start documenting the evidence. There's a baggie that's sticking out of the safe, which tests positive for cocaine. There are also some cards and rolled up dollar bill. They find a large corner cut out with white powder. There are Ziploc bags containing smaller bags. One of them has KKK written on it. Another Ziploc contains multiple small bags with powder. They find a digital scale, a metal pen and container, 2 snort tubes, and 2 cutters. Officer Pomplin goes back into the studio. A cop tells him they didn't search the stuff that's covered in dust since it obviously hasn't been touched recently. So to give you an idea, there is so much shit in this house that even though they have a full search warrant for the home, the cops are sitting there thinking, we have to make some decisions about what we're not going to search, because if we actually took out all this shit and itemize all this shit in the most studious detail possible, we would literally never ever get through this home. So they're saying, okay, all the mounds of shit, all the gigantic piles of fucking garbage that are everywhere, if it's covered in dust, don't bother with it, because it's probably not going to be recent anyways. They're probably not going to leave their drugs under the untouched piles of junk, because they need that for doing drugs. So they make some tough calls about what to search for expediency's sake. Let's see. He's searching through the artwork that's against the wall, including the cat painting. You can see a close-up of a lot of the stuff that's usually behind Nick when he's streaming. They find a container or box of something and says it looks like cornstarch inside. This motherfucker is eating cornstarch. This guy is he's become a person of cornstarch. That's really quite incredible. He starts going through Nick's collectibles, opening boxes and looking inside. He says there aren't other safes. A family service worker asks about collecting electronics for the kids and says they're going to grandma's. Officer Pomplin goes into a room where there are lots of clothing racks with clean clothes hanging up. Kayla is in there with family services, gathering clothes for the kids. The officer asks about getting electronics for them. Officer Pomplin goes into the garage. He finds out there's another safe and gets the equipment to break it open. They open it. Inside, there are guns and ammo. He takes pictures of all the guns and the rest of the contents. One of the cops starts looking around at all the boxes and totes of stuff. He asks how long they've been living there. Officer Pomplin says, a while. The other cop looks like they have a half unpacked boxes from moving or something. Oh, okay. So the cop is asking why, how long have they been there? And Officer Pomplin is like, well, they've been here for fucking ages, for years. And then the cop mentions that there are like boxes that have never been unpacked. So even in the garage, there is like shit that is just stacked in boxes that they've never touched. Now Pomplin says it might be April stuff. She says she's only been there for a month. So she did. She if that is her stuff, she properly moved in. She had half open boxes of moving stuff inside the room. So that's really crazy. Okay, one second. Inside, let's see. Okay, so someone walks through with the dog on a leash. An officer comes in and says there's another safe in the master bedroom closet. Officer Pomplin asks him to bring it out into the garage. They bring it out and break it open. Inside there are Ziploc baggies, a rolled $100 bill with white powder, rolling papers, lots of THC cartridges, a scooper, and a small funnel. They're not sure what some of it is, but they suspect fentanyl. They take pictures of it all. They leave the THC cartridges and don't put them into evidence. They say they'll test everything else in the station. Officer Pomplin starts documenting all the evidence in his report: drugs, paraphernalia, guns, and ammo. He lists them all out, including serial numbers on the guns. They discuss needing to do a basic sweep of the kids' rooms and other bathrooms. Kayla's mom arrives to pick up the kids and dog. Kayla walks in shortly after, looking strung out. She's wearing a backless shirt, and you can see all of her back tattoos. They come across a box with April's name on it. They open it to inspect the contents. Oh, they were right. So that was her moving stuff, where she was unpacking into the household over time. They start going through the kitchen cabinets, focusing especially on the ones with pills and medicines. They think that they found needles and realize there are syringes without needles, the kind used for administering liquid medications. Officer Pomplin goes back into the master bathroom, walk-in closet, and another officer who debriefs him on where they found the previous evidence, like the bullet in the other safe. The other cop is in the back of the closet, looking at a shelf, saying there are all kinds of THC, vapes, and adult stuff. This is the cop who was inspecting the dildo collection. You can't see it from Pomplin's point of view, but it's clear these items are out in the open, easily visible, and accessible to anyone who walks in, including the kids. So the dildo collection is right there, out in the open, for everybody walking past the room in the middle of the house, right next to the kitchen and living room, for anyone to see. They announce that everyone else is gone, and they start collecting all their stuff. One of them brings to the incident where Nick threw the warrant on the ground. I wish I had that, man. That's what I really want. So that's the cop that handed him the warrant, and he went and dropped it on the ground like a fucking baby. They all leave. So this is her addendum. She says, the house has a very weird layout. The location of the master bedroom is especially concerning. It is very close to the main communal areas, making it easy for kids to overhear things they shouldn't, like sex noises, arguments, and other adult conversations or activities. The messiest and most hoarded areas of the house are the ones the adults spend most of their time in. The streaming setup is highly curated. What viewers see on camera is a complete illusion. Behind the scenes, it is a filthy, cramped, and chaotic lair. I think she's what she meant to say there. Not all the drugs and paraphernalia were hidden. Some were left out in the open, in areas kids could easily access if they are the inquisitive type, including the master bathroom, bedroom, and closet. It is a heavy and honestly heartbreaking to witness the conditions the kids and animals have been living in. The filth, the chaos, the presence of drugs and weapons create an environment no child or pet should be subjected to. The dog lives confined to the bathroom. At least one cat was seen on home. That is fucking bizarre. So apparently, I don't know if this is like all the time or if it was just there for a while, but apparently the dog lives in the bathroom. And the children, they were not just caught in the middle of a search warrant. They have been living in this every day. You can feel the weight of that reality in almost every frame of the footage. Even basic things like clothing and mail were randomly scattered. Important documents were mixed in with fan art, trash, and drug gear. Nothing was organized, and there was no sense of separation between adult items and areas where the kids lived and played. Finding Nick's mom's prescription bottle alongside the cocaine and paraphernalia raises bigger questions about his parents' role in all of this. Are they enabling it, turning it a blind eye, or actively involved? At the very least, it points to a serious lack of boundaries. At worst, it suggests a generational pattern of dysfunction that these kids are now sadly caught up in. It's also worth noting that the behavior of the officers throughout the search were patient, respectful, and professional from start to finish. Despite the overwhelming filth, drug presence, and emotional weight of the scene, they kept their personal commentary to a minimum. They did not mock or escalate. In fact, given everything they encountered, it's notable how restrained they were. While the search could have been even more thorough, it would have taken significantly longer, and they seem focused on securing the most critical evidence while minimizing disruption to the children who were present. And that is body cam document 1. This will be the most complete body cam document that comes out until our lawsuit is over, and then we'll just have the footage, hopefully. So, perspective 2. She starts her notes off with some final thoughts. She says, I was not able to stop or rewind, so these are very off-the-cuff comments. The footage was a bit overwhelming. The house is so huge and cluttered that it is very disorienting to watch. Also, the officer we followed must be in charge, and he's all over the place. Okay, so I was wrong. It was not Officer Pomplin who was in charge. It was Officer Robbie who seems to be in charge. He sticks in one room for a few minutes and then shuffles between them, so footage is all over the place. However, we hardly see the kids at all, and the officers act very kind and patient with the family. The footage is taken on the 23rd of May last year, so this is 6 days or 1 week after the footage was taken, and starts at 9:11 a.m. It starts with the police car as the officers approach the house. There's a dirty cat house or tower filled with trash bags on the patio. Officer sees the kids inside the house and through the window. It takes about 6 knocks for the police on the door yelling search warrant before someone responds. One of Nick's daughters can be heard saying that Daddy told them not to answer the door. As soon as the door is open, it is a literal labyrinth of clothes and stuff. Hard to decipher where one room begins and another ends because every counter and table surface is covered in bottles, clothes, packages of food, and indicators of kids and their toys live there. There's not a lot of space to walk around the piles of stuff either. They find 2 females, April and Kayla, in the main bedroom. We have not seen them yet. The 6-year-old, stated by the officer, keeps saying something about her dad kept telling her not to let them in as the police begin to walk around the kitchen. Question mark kitchen, because the main room, kitchen, and dining room seem to be one big space, but again, it's hard to tell with furniture cues since everything is so cluttered and covered. Kayla shows up with her arms up, a very dry voice. She seems lethargic and out of it. There's some kind of room they walk in, the kids' room, question mark. It has rainbow IKEA shelf in it, and it is completely flooded with junk and clothing. This room is an actual hoarder-looking room. There are a few moments where the officer seems to be covering the camera with his hand. Hard to tell if it's on purpose or accident. Literally just shit everywhere as they move about the house. Just so many random piles of clothes. There's a stairway that has some kind of chair or love seat. It's half the size of a couch, just turned upside down at the bottom of their stairs that was clearly done before the cops showed up. Not sure what that all is about. They have a big fluffy orange cat though, and it is cute. So I consider that really remarkable. Apparently just at the bottom of their stairwell, there's like an upturned sofa or like a lazy boy. I'm just imagining, I literally have lied awake at night thinking about what this love seat is for. And I'm like, were they moving it from upstairs to downstairs and just threw it down the stairs and then gave up and left it there? Were they trying to push it upstairs and then gave up and left it there as it rolled back? Was it there at some point and then Nick kicked it over in a fit of rage and literally nobody bothered to right it ever again? Did a dog do it? Did a cat do it? And nobody bothered to fix it? Where did the seat come from? What does it do? And why is it there, chat? I would love to know your opinions. The garage is... Let me restart my setup real quick. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Someone was complaining about microphone line. My everything's been completely fucked up. Release the cat. That's right. Release the cat footage. 10 minutes in and we still have not seen Nick on camera. The garage is very cluttered. It looks like they just moved in with all the boxes and stuff. Given it is the garage, though, it honestly looks like the most normal room in the house. Lots of filled, packed luggage bags, too. So that is definitely Kayla's stuff. Or not Kayla, but April. The officer goes back upstairs and gets a quick, close glimpse of one of the counters, and we can see food wrappers, bottles, and a box of goldfish, parentheses opened. At 9:23, we finally are outside, and we see Nick meekly showing up in the driveway, looking pissed, like he's about to cry and arms folded. He has short cargo shorts and that shitty Jamaican-colored tank. That is incredible. It honestly is incredible to me that the fucking Jamaican tank. We have the mugshot though when he's wearing this thing, but I forgot about that. I forgot that he literally gets arrested in his Hedonism 2 tourism merchandise from Jamaica. The cop goes back in and starts getting supplies and gloves to start drug testing stuff in the main bedroom. A lot of this part of the video is just the cops gathering supplies and talking about their attack plan on the house because it is so large and has so much stuff. We are in the bedroom to test. There's a lamp on the nightshade that just has a random tube balancing on top of it. That wasn't in the... I haven't read that one before. There's a lamp on the nightstand that has a random tube balancing on top of it. That is a fucking crackhead thing. She leaned over like high. I was like, I'm going to balance, just like to muse or something. I'm going to balance this fucking crack pipe on this lamp. And then they just left it there and nobody ever touched it again. Very, very, very cluttered space with lots of shit. It's important to note that the bedroom is right there. So remember, these guys didn't talk, but they both found it extremely noteworthy to leave this in the notes. That the bedroom is right there in the main hallway of the house. You could easily walk by it every day if you live there. I say that because all of the shit they had in their room would be very easily accessible to the kids. As you walk by the outside of the room, you can look right under the bed and the nightstands. The cops keep saying that the two adult females were found in the bedroom together. There's an incredible amount of bottles and makeup products and clothes, booze bottles and water cups on windowsills. The cops decide to go downstairs for a second and give a quick scan of the stream room. We get to, a closer, quick glimpse of the kitchen table just covered in stuff and loose documents. We enter the stream room and oddly, the ceiling doesn't seem finished. It just has these latex brand sheets covering it. That is also, that is bizarre. I'm surprised the first person that mentioned that. I know what she means. They don't have like a proper like stucco ceiling or whatever. So it must be an extension. That's why it's past that weird library. We head back upstairs to the bedroom. We see shoes, garbage, and a lot of clutter at the top of the stairs. They seem pretty dangerous with all the junk around the stairs. At 9:31, we see him swab around the pillow and it tests positive for cocaine. We then see him pick up a black vial. It looks like a lipstick tube, and when he unscrews it, we see white powder. The officer responds with a, "Oh yeah." He takes a picture of it. we thank Deputy Kool-Aid for his commentary. The officer says there is a measurable amount of cocaine in the bedroom. At 9:33 in the master bedroom, a measurable amount of cocaine. They also find a large stack of cash, according to them. An officer states that Nick is asking about probable cause, quotation marks. He wants to ask questions on probable cause. The main officer we are following calls Child Protective Services to the house. A senior officer who has been talking to Nick says that Nick feels he's been hurt. Well, that's sad. I never at any point throughout this have I ever wanted to hurt Nick's feelings, to be clear. Nick's reaction to me getting the body cam footage or not getting the body cam footage has never been a determining factor, and if I will pursue the body cam footage. When calling family services at 9:37, the officer says, and is a black crop top that has a collar and is cut in a way that shows her cleavage heavily and her stomach is out. She has a huge piece of rock jewelry in her belly button as well. She looks and sounds so dry. Honestly, it does not even look or sound like her. She actually looks like a tranny, just very drum and kind of avoids the question. It seems obvious that she knew that her being in the bedroom with Kayla and all the cocaine was or would get her in big trouble. Nick does look very pissed and arms still crossed before he is cuffed. The officer is very kind and heads back in the house to get her shoes, which are just haphazardly placed at the top of the stairs. As the officer heads back in the house, the fat orange cat gets out and the kids, who have been outside on the patio and porch the whole time, say it can go outside. We hear a kind officer ask about the kids about their pets to try and calm them down. They actually seem to be okay, no crying and in decent spirits. I think Kayla is with them until a woman from Child Protective Services comes. She is the one with the white and black striped shirt. We are back in the main bedroom to keep testing stuff. The officer we are following seems to be the head honcho as he moves in and out of every room and making calls and shots throughout it, so we are just walking around saying stuff. As he enters back into the bedroom, another officer mentions that they have found quite a bit of edibles in the room. They don't state what kind, but it can be assumed to be weed. If you did not know, they have edibles for shrooms, molly, and other mixtures that are actually easy and common to get, but also gummies just being accessible in the bedroom bothers me. Yeah, because I mean, it's like gummy bears. Like if you're a little kid and you walk into dad's room and he's got like this secret stash of like gummy bears, you're like, ooh, gummy bears. You might take a handful of gummy bears and then you're fucked. you're incapacitated. At 9:47, the officer finally tests the black vial, and it is an instant blue swab. Cocaine right there on the bedstand. You could see it from the hallway. So, this is like the biggest thing to me. It's like this room is in the middle of everything. Everybody can see it. Everybody walks past it. It's the main hub of the entire home. And right there on the cuck fridge, visible from the living room, is the cocaine. He continues to shuffle through the stuff on the bedstand, but the angle makes it difficult to see exactly what is being tested and touching on the stand. Then an officer tells him they found a rifle under the bed. The main officer heads out of the bedroom again. We see a female officer taking care of Kayla, getting her ready to be dressed and sent to jail with the others. We go back into the bedroom and we see a rifle in its box on the bed. The box is literally just a cardboard box, and the gun is just sitting in it with styrofoam, not locked up at all, and is a huge rifle. I remember that a point of contention was that they found 22 LR rounds inside the bedroom, but Rekieta was like, my gun's a 5.56. That 5.56 can't shoot those rounds, so it's not like we shot it inside the house or whatever. So that was the thing that he was really upset about, because the shell casings were entered into evidence as kind of like evidence that the gun had been fired, but both testimonies say that it's a bigger gun, so it's probably not a 22. It's probably a 5.56 AR. At 9:50, we hear an officer say that they found 2 spent casings in the bedroom, found a snort tube on the nightstand, test positive for cocaine, and it's the first piece of evidence bagged. There are some open drinks and tubes on the bedstand. The black vial is bagged up as evidence. 2 credit cards in the name of April are found, and both the snort tubes and the black vial were found right at the top of the cards. At 9:54, we hear them say that someone named Celeste had their medication right on the bed and stand literally next to the cocaine vial, snort tube, and credit cards. So again, This is consistent with both of them as well. They find his mother's prescription bottle of medication on the cuck fridge next to the cocaine, snort tube, and credit cards. So Mama Rekieta is either missing medication or giving medication to Rekieta and his hot wife. There's a white stuffed animal with a hairbrush at the foot of the fridge right next to it, so it doesn't seem like the kids come. It does seem like the kids come in here, given that there are a few toys around on the floor. There seems to be a small laptop also stuffed into the space between the bed and the fridge, and the light looks like it is on. There is no comment on this by any officer. The rifle number is, that's a serial, and has multiple magazines with it in the bedroom, says one of the officers. At 10, we hear them say they found even more edibles in the bedroom. They confirm again that the rifle was found under the bed. One officer pulls out a metal funnel or vial object that is found with another glass vial with some kind of white powder in it. This was found in the shelf under the TV in the bedroom. They test the white powder and there's a faint blue on the swab, and the officer indicates this means that it could be a mixture. He bags it for evidence. They find some weed pipes and test them for other drugs. An officer comments at 10:04 in frustration that there is just so much stuff in here. The main officer tells them to be mindful of needles, as he now believes it could be a possibility. They are just continuing to dig through all the shit on the floor. There is a big luggage case that he opens up and is completely packed with clothes and objects. The suitcase was already under a huge pile of clothes he pushes off of it. At 10:06, the officer decides to split up the team. He is leaving the bedroom to the others as he wants to go down and test Nick's studios. One of the officers calls it a little lair, LOL. They find April's purse in the bedroom. We head downstairs to the studio at 10:08, and we also cross paths with the Child Protective Services woman. There is a very cluttered and full library room right before you enter the studio. There are 4 monitors with the... 4? This is... Everything must be thrown out now. I've heard 4 and 5 monitors, so... Obviously, this is unreliable narrative testimony, chat. Completely unreliable. With the Joker painting tucked behind them out of sight, LOL. They're still on it, and it looks like he ended some stream. Very full, cluttered shelves that the officers dig through. They oddly keep finding random $5 bills throughout his junk. It looks like some of them might have been dollar origami, but some of them were just stuffed into cups or pin holders. The officer tests a few things, but he finds nothing suspicious besides tons of bottles and trash that seem to be in there. One officer does find some baggie of weird stuff. They guess maybe cloves or pepper. The main officer thinks it might be a whiskey starter. So just homebrewing a little whiskey in the in the lair, as you do, as adults do, in your unfinished lair attached to your library. You're just sitting there with some cloves and pepper, doing a little moonshine to pass the time. Everybody's got to have a hobby. Then an officer brings a big metal safe down at 10:12, and they say they found it in the bathroom. We can see a dirty Ziploc baggie poking out of it. The officer says he will deal with it in a bit, and they go back upstairs. At 10:16, we were just rummaging through black shelves and testing random bits, but nothing is really down here. At 10:17, the officers with safes returns and ask for help with it, and they go upstairs to a small red bathroom on the main floor. I have to assume this is the main bathroom everyone uses when they don't need to shower, and the safe was found in here. The officer says it was under the sink, but the sink is one of those pillar sinks, so there is no bottom. I wonder if it was just tucked off to the side, ? So she's wondering aloud if the main bathroom, that's not a shower room that many people would use if they're not using the master bedroom, was the one where the drugs were found. So that would be in plain view of the kids. I guess it's locked, so it's better than not being locked, like the drugs on the cuck fridge, but... I mean, the baggie is just sitting right there. So I don't know. Maybe that's how the little girl got cocaine in her system. If she was playing with the baggie of drugs exposed to the bathroom, she's like, "What the fuck is this?" and like pulled at it and then got it on her. But then I don't know. It was a high test rate, so it couldn't be that much. But apparently there are little baggies of drugs just floating about in the ether of the house. So, the safe is opened up and the contents are spread across the top of the toilet bowl for testing and evidence collecting. We can see a scale, blue snort tubes, and very dirty Ziplocs with cards and powders in them. At 10:19, he tests the cards and bags in one of the Ziplocs and it tests positive for cocaine. We now start bagging all the objects in the bathroom safe and calling them out as evidence. Evidence 8, large corner cut. This is what they call the large bag with a huge amount of white substance in it. He says they will test it when they get back. Evidence 9, Ziploc baggie containing multiple baggies. One baggie has powder and it has KKK written on it. Evidence 10, Ziploc baggie containing multiple baggies with powder. Evidence 11 is a digital scale. Evidence 12 is a metal object, a funnel. The officers are unsure, containing powder. Evidence 13, 2 snort tubes, plastic straws, and 2 cutters. After packing up all the contents in the safe at 10:23, we head back downstairs to the studio and continue testing. He goes through some drawers and they're just packed with objects and loose documents. At 10:25, they continue to search the library that is outside the studio room. Then we go back into the bathroom to double check for any evidence. We get a sight of a skeleton model that is just hanging out in the open space of the living room. We also see a dining room table, ? By the windows, just completely covered in junk and food packages. So apparently there is a spooky, scary skeleton that is not Kayla and not Rekieta and not April. That is like a prop Halloween object that is just chilling out in the living area of the main room. And that was Nick. He was watching them. At 10:26, we head into the bathroom with a hot tub. Oddly, even though it was a ton of stuff in here as well, the floor is pretty clear of junk and is the cleanest of the rooms. There are so many lotion and makeup products all over the counters, and of course, more booze bottles, empty and half full on the counter and window sills. There are many windows in the entire house that just have booze bottles on them. At 10:23, we're still digging through the hot tub room. They head into some kind of laundry room, and it barely has any visible floor, just piles of clothes and filled laundry baskets. There's a halfway window, and there are 2 bottles of booze, and right next to them on the same windowsill, there is a little teddy bear figurine. Sad, she says. I cannot tell what kind of room we are in at 10:38, but it seems to be some kind of closet or bedroom. It has more shelves and more clothes. There is a huge rack of so many adult clothes right in the middle. He digs through the random trinket box and finds another bullet inside that he takes as evidence. All caps, louder with Crowder mug spotted at 3340 Lamau. So I think this is the real takeaway. This is the real lesson here, chat. Nick Rekieta is in the Mug Club. He is louder with Crowder, supporting his fellow Rumble streamers. As he wakes up in the morning and he stumbles out of bed and he takes his morning bump and he goes to the coffee maker, he's pouring that straight into his louder with Crowder mug. Welcome to the Mug Club. At 10:36, we find another safe, and the officer searches for Kayla to get the code so they don't have to bust it open, like he said. We then head back to the garage right before it crashes on me, and the officer says that they found 2 handguns hanging out in the garage. So it's unclear if the handguns were in the safe or not, but that was one of the things they wanted to look at. They wanted to see if it was actually in the safe or not. And then it ends at 10:37:27, which I think is very, very close to the end. So I was right. About 15 minutes of the footage is left out. I think the footage ends at 11. So about 23 minutes is left out of this one. And then the other one is just the first hour, again, by the same woman who made these notes. And that's all, chat. That is the notes of the body cam footage. Unfortunately, I couldn't get 3 for 2, as I said, because the county is acting very swiftly to prevent access to the footage. And now it is the uphill battle of undoing the thing that already happened, preserving evidence, and suing Kandiyohi County for denying us what we have a right to access. So, as I mentioned, if you go to the Kiwi Farms right now and you go to the front page, I featured these notes if you would like to read them for yourself. I mentioned before, I'll reiterate it here. I have 2 attorneys. One of them is Hardin. I don't know, the other one hasn't entered an appearance yet, but he'll enter his appearance soon. I have 2 attorneys who are personally indignant about what the county is doing and are willing to work pro bono all the way up to the tippy top. I still have the $6,000 that was crowdfunded for the purposes of getting the body cam footage. They're working pro bono, but if we have to pay for travel expenses for them to attend hearings in person, that will come from that money. If we have to pay footage still untouched, still ready to go right now, and if I need to pay for people's gas or hotels or RV camping spots or printing expenses, that is what it will be used for. And the buck does not stop here. I know that Rekieta is probably feeling very relieved because of how quickly the county worked to help him. However, I want to say something. I want to get a thought on record. I know this will be a very short stream, just because of a combination of technical issues and just I don't want to bundle this up with other stuff. I honestly, this is my opinion with Rekieta's, my personal opinion with how he's acting and what he's doing. Is I understand that this is very embarrassing for him, and as I mentioned, I would be seeking this footage if he didn't care, if he, was very angry about it, or if he thought it would help. If he thought that the body cam footage would exonerate him and would show that the cops were doing, wrongdoing and planting evidence. Regardless of what it showed, I would be searching for it anyways, because I agree with Rekieta when he said that these things should be public, and I consider it a matter of public interest. I think that Rekieta is doing himself an extraordinary disservice, and I think that he should release it himself. And I think that he should have released it himself over, a year ago when he first got access to it, because you can see how visibly this upsets him, and how he flails out, and how he, gets super angry on stream, how he panics and starts calling up the sheriff and the prosecuting attorney, and he's doing everything he possibly can, dedicating hours of his life to stopping me from getting access to something I am still very certain I will get access to, be it next week or next year. I will pursue this to the very ends of the earth, because I have people who are Minnesota attorneys who want it too. It doesn't cost me anything to do this, and I want to, and I feel like the public has a right to it, and I will pursue this. The United States is not the United Kingdom. People don't get arrested mysteriously. They don't get black bagged and sent to county jail without their charges being public. And the proceedings of our trials are public for a reason. And it's all the way up to the Supreme Court. They have held that the public has an interest in knowing. It's a part of both our ability to petition our government for grievances, which is the First Amendment, and it's a part of our right to a fair and speedy trial. Is why we have two different constitutional amendments that guarantee us rights to access to things relevant to court proceedings, because we are a transparent, open country with an accountable government, and we've weighed the embarrassment of the individual versus the public interest in court footage and court evidence, and we find that the public has a greater interest than people have a right to privacy in their criminal proceedings for their own good. So it's part of the reason why we're the greatest country that's ever existed. The United States is the greatest country that has ever existed on the planet Earth. And if this country ceased to exist, there would never be a country as great as the United States ever again in the history of mankind on this planet. So I am actually genuinely very deeply passionate about stuff like this. And it's not just spite. It is something that I really, truly believe in to the bottom of my fucking soul. And I'm going to get that footage. As far as Rekieta himself, I think that he should play. I think he should have played it last year. And as I said, you can see the impact that this has on him, and that it upsets him, and it worries him, and it frustrates him, and causes him to spend time freaking out about it and bothering other people about it. And it is like a sword of Damocles hanging over his head. And there's going to be more updates, drip feeds, little concessions to us every so often, and as this thing progresses. And eventually, I believe I'll get it. And he's going to have to worry about it the entire time. And I promise him that whatever he is afraid of coming out is nowhere near as bad as the damage it will cause to him and to his family by worrying about it coming out for the next however many weeks or months or a full year. And if he was smart, if he was like genuinely apologetic and willing to get over his criminal conviction, he should have released it himself. Because he could have staged this in a very intelligent way. He could have come back and said, "I am sorry. I betrayed my family. I betrayed my audience. I was not a good father. I was not a good husband. I was not a good entertainer or loyal to my fans. I'm going to go over my proceedings. I'm going to show my body cam footage, and I am going to work at getting back to where I was. And I think if he had done that, he would have achieved heights in his career that would have eclipsed his prior peaks, because nobody holds shit like that against you for long. There will always be people who are assholes, but I think people would find that very endearing. And that's what's so frustrating, is that Rekieta is not just the same as he was when he was arrested. He's very clearly the same exact person: selfish, conceited, arrogant, narcissistic, angry, controlling. He's worse. He's all the things that he was before, but worse and sober. And he considers this an injustice. He considers this lifestyle that I just read to you in great detail to be something that he had a natural right to live as. And it hurt nobody except himself, and it was nobody's business except his own. And when he has the opportunity and the internal excuse and justification to do so, he will revert back to that lifestyle even harder. And I think that him going to prison is an inevitability, and I think that him having a divorce is an inevitability. There are two rumors, by the way, that I figured I'd announce on stream, and I must say that these are rumors. One of them, the more credible one that I've heard, is apparently Rekieta was trespassed from the Minnesota Department of Health and Human Services. Apparently, according to the local gossip in Kandiyohi County, Rekieta went to see the Child Welfare Service some months ago and had such a massive spurg out in person at the Department of DHHS that they actually trespassed him and told him not to come back to any more government buildings because he made such a scene that they kicked him out. So that's rumor number one. Rumor number two, and this one is more hearsay, but supposedly this is going to become a great public happening in the near future. Rekieta has apparently, allegedly, according to my sources, been physically violent with both Kayla and his sons. I've been told that he has slapped his sons, and I've told that he has been repeatedly physically violent with Kayla, and that is why they almost got a divorce. During the Keanu argument, if you listen to that, Rekieta kind of broke for the first time that they almost got a divorce, him and Kayla. And my suspicion is that it was because he allegedly got violent with her. So things are very bad. They were bad before, and even if his parents came in and tidied up the house, they're still bad, and he's still the same person that allowed his house to decay to such a standard. I do not believe for a second that April Imholt just so happens to live in Wilmer, right up the street, an easy visiting distance for Rekieta. I think that they're still together. I think that he's lying. When he went on that diatribe about how he was confused, I was so confident that I would have access to the footage, he very quickly brushed aside the idea that April might have consented because he knows April. He's still talking to her, and he knows that she didn't consent to having the body cam footage released. So it's just sad. And it's so surprising because I genuinely thought, I really thought that what would happen is that he would get snapped out of it by the arrest and by the sheer humiliation and spectacle of what has happened. And he would try, and he hasn't tried at all. Nothing's changed. Nothing. Everything, it's been a full year. It's been 1 year and 7 days, 1 week, since the details of the transcript I just read to you. And nothing has, in a real tangible way, absolutely nothing about Rekieta has changed at all, except he's now on probation. And there's a moment that was clipped on the Kiwi Farms of him from either this stream or the stream before, where his son enters the lair, the little lair, and he's distracted and looks over annoyed, looks over at his son. His son hands him some papers. He glances at them for like 30 seconds and he signs off on them. And he tried to say on stream that this was homework that he was signing off on, but it was like at 2 a.m. His kid was awake at 2 a.m. handing him paperwork. I'm just thinking, like, this is like a permission slip for him to do something that's getting the fuck out of this house. This is for him to move somewhere or go someplace or get involved in some extracurricular activity that means getting the fuck away from him. And I think he knows, like, and it was just so flippant. Like, before, his kids, except for his little kids, would never come into his little lair to talk to him because they knew he was streaming, and you don't interrupt daddy when he's streaming. Now they're just walking in like, hey, sign this, retard. I got shit to do. That's not sitting in this fucking house with you. And he just like grumpily signs it and throws it off to him and says, yeah, good night, bro. So tensions are still high. Nothing's been fixed. Nothing's been resolved. And it's just like, I don't know why. He can fix it right now. He can fix it right now. He can show the body cam footage to get it out of the fucking way and truly move the fuck past this case, which is still open and still not adjudicated. And he can make the amends that I said, and he can start working to repair the truly irreparable damage that he's done to his family. And he's not going to. And it's just not, it's not what I wished for him. I'll phrase it like that. I don't mean to ramble or take up too much of your time. The interesting part of the stream, what I have to show you, has been read. So, how likely are the grandparents involved in the degeneracy? There's a meme that the grandparents donated a lot of money to Rekieta's, like to a zoo, and supposedly the zoo is like an incredibly important nexus of like public-private enterprise in Kandiyohi County, so they call it like the Zooluminati or something. I can't speak on the existence or non-existence of aforementioned Zooluminati, but it is possible, I suppose, that the grandparents are using their Zooluminati connections to to get some stuff done. Let's see. Okay, I was able to pull it up. Why is the government covering for him? Here's my theory. That's a great question. Here's my theory. I believe that the prosecutor made representations to Nick that the body cam footage would never, ever come out if he pled guilty to the charges. And there is two shady things happening with the prosecution. Number one, using something like that as a means to compel a confession is unethical. It's not immediately obvious to me if such a thing is unconstitutional, and the plea deal is therefore invalidated as a result. The other thing that happened is that this body cam footage was entered into evidence in Rekieta's criminal case to help April. And it is also generally considered unethical for a prosecuting attorney to allow co-defendants to run joint defenses for each other when they're tried separately. So it's a very strange setup that the body cam footage was entered into evidence to defend April from Nick's perspective, but then also, if part of the deal was that the body cam footage would remain off the record, number one, it would have to be an informal part of the plea deal, because number one, it was not entered into the plea deal formally, and number two, after the plea deal was read, the judge asked the prosecution and the defense, is there any part of the plea deal which is not on this public record that I need to know about? And at that point, if the body cam footage staying off the record was part of the plea deal, then they should have said, yes, there is, and should have told the judge off the record, in private, what that was, and had that sealed. But it seems like it's an informal arrangement where they just said, like, yeah, sure, if it doesn't go to trial, then it doesn't get entered into evidence. And now it's looking like it is entered into evidence, and they did not properly handle that, and it might come out, and the prosecutor is afraid of being sued or afraid of his plea deal being thrown out. So I'm not sure what's going on with that, but it is extremely strange. Why did they even give him a plea deal? I don't know. It's any number of reasons. It could have just been to be nice to him, because he is a member of the community. He does donate money. He went to a church. He has 5 kids. He has no reason to run. He's a pretty favorable first-time offender. Pretty favorable defendant for a lenient sentence. Let's see. Is there a way to spin this so that it's not a total Baldo victory? This is a huge win for Nick if his main concern is not having the body cam footage come out, because at the very least, it's now incredibly delayed. It's going to take a long time to undo this damage. I can't stress, like, it was one thing for the prosecutor to ask for this. We were going to intervene today, but we were going to intervene this morning, but it happened so quickly that he got what he wanted, that there's actually there was no way for us to intervene in time to stop the immediate decision, because it's an uncontested thing in the case. So it is, like, actually shocking. Nobody could have expected this specifically, but I did expect the unexpected, which is why as soon as I heard about it, when I figured out, or rather when Hardin figured out that there was a way to access the footage in person, I did not say a fucking word. I did not say a fucking word to anyone. I kept my fucking mouth shut, and I thought, I need to get people to see that footage today. And in like 3 days, I managed to get the first woman out to see Officer Pomplin's video footage, and that's why we have those nice notes. Like, I didn't say shit. I didn't hint at shit. I didn't tell a fucking soul. It was me, Hardin, and the people who were physically going there, and nobody else knew, because I knew. I didn't know what I knew. I didn't know what would happen, but I knew something would happen, because I knew that there was no way that Rekieta would let it get out in public. So I took every possible conceivable means. And then after the first viewing, the schedule to actually get a jury room to see the evidence was like weeks apart. So we got one in the next week to see Robbie's footage, which I also read. And then from there, it was like, mid-June to see it again. This day was a very important day because it was the first day that was actually available all day, which is why all three were attending. But they knew that people were coming, and they knew they had to rush it, because they didn't know if I assume they knew that we had people visit before, but they didn't know what we had. So they knew that 3 people were coming, and that they were going to take extensive notes all day. And that's why they rushed it. They rushed it real fucking hard, because they knew that they were literally driving to Kandiyohi County to see that footage, and they knew they had to shut that shit off immediately. What are the odds they'll just delete the footage? I am worried about that, because the thing is, if they delete the footage now, the best that we can do is sue the county. So we might get a judgment of like $100,000 for blatantly illegal violations, but the sheriff has immunity through his position, and the prosecuting attorney has judicial immunity, which is like an almost absolute immunity. So there's nobody we can hold accountable for it if they just delete it now. But we will be able to sue the county. But that's not what I want. I would honestly rather have the body cam footage than $100,000+ from Kandiyohi County. You know what I mean? How did they view the footage in the first place? It was entered into evidence. Rekieta's attorney entered into evidence 2 body cam videos to try and prove that April Imholt was not properly Mirandized. It is evidence. It was entered as evidence. It was reviewed as evidence, and it was ruled on as evidence. So therefore, it's evidence, and it's public record. So that's why they were able to see it. But because there's kids in it, they couldn't release it directly. You had to come in person to see it. And the sheriff should have released redacted versions to us, but he refused. And that's what set the ball in motion for this to be unwound, basically. But they were able to see it in person before that happened. How long are the videos? I think an hour and 45 minutes. That's all it took. They even with the house as cluttered as it was, the drugs were in such plain view and in such obvious positions that they didn't need to search through the hoarder mess to find it. They just took it from the top of the cabinet. Is the kids being in it a law? Yes, because they're minors, and they are owed an additional level of privacy from the government that adults are not given. So yes, they're owed privacy, which is why it has to be censored before it can be released publicly. Do I think another figure is trying to get the body cam footage now? He'll get arrested again. Yeah, we'll probably get the body cam footage from the second arrest before we get the one from the first arrest. Knowing my luck. Let's see. Check the Rumble chat. Did they find ceiling cat? Dude, now that I know that the ceiling is uncovered, it's extremely possible that there was a ceiling cat poking out of the like the Lowe's insulation stuff above the paneling. I have not seen some of the footage. So I actually really considered flying out to Minnesota. I could not justify it. It would have been a very long flight, and I would have had to spend money for hotels and shit to see it in person. And I just couldn't justify it. I considered driving out there, and then I like actually searched the distance from Florida to Minnesota. I thought it would be like a 12-hour drive. I greatly underestimated how far out in the middle of nowhere Minnesota is, and it was like I want to say it was like a 20-hour drive, maybe even longer to get to Minnesota to Kandiyohi County. I'm like, fuck that. So my options were to fly, and there were no direct flights from anywhere near me. And then I would have to stay. And it was just like you could only go certain days, and then I would have to stay like an entire week in a hotel because there's only certain days that they were open to see it anyways. And it's just like, fuck. I really, 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 really wanted to, though. I also decided early on, in case you picked up, all three of the witnesses were women. I also decided at some point that, you know what, I should probably get women to do this because Rekieta's go-to insult seems to be saying that everybody who wants to see the inside of his dirty, filthy fucking hovel and his little lair is a pedophile. So I thought, you know what, I should just get women to do it because women are like 10 times less likely to be, you know, a pedophile. So I'm like, if I just get women to do it, it looks like I've taken every reasonable precaution imaginable to handle this as responsibly as possible. So I feel like the way that I had planned it out was actually superior than me just actually going to see it myself. And now it's like I'm not inserting false memories into this because I have certain predispositions towards Rekieta or whatever. These are like random people who just wanted to see the footage that are members of the public in the area. So I need that footage. I really do. Citrus Addict, for one, says, Rackets said the cop did him dirty. We need the footage so to either clear up his name or restore faith in the justice or the system. Public interest could not be higher. I agree. I fully agree there's a public interest for it, but it's evidence now. The fact they're trying to hide entered in evidence that was used to decide judicial matters in a criminal proceeding is like, whoa, buddy, what are you doing? 11th Circuit produces a self-professed libertarian and man of the principles, Nitrous Nicky. Rekieta conspiring with the evil government to keep public court records secret. Shocking, I tell you. I know. It's like the man made his career talking about other people's body cam footage and trials and judicial proceedings and shit. It's crazy. Saxon Bear for 5 says, for anyone wondering how to avoid a plight like Nick's, don't do drugs, don't fuck anyone other than your spouse, and don't give drugs to your children. Follow these steps for success. These are very controversial opinions in 2025, but I think you might have a point, Saxon Bear. Good Luck 7 for 5 says, do you now have a cat? I thought there was a meow as you mentioned pipes and bongs in Rekieta's notes. My secret cat is a point of contention among the hater A-log community of mine, but I don't want to spoil anything. Gosh Hananzi for 10 says, Nick was self-proclaimed conservative, religious family man. What's your opinion? Was he always lying for the grift, or did he succumb to temptation or something else? You know, this is a controversial opinion, and whenever I say this, people get shitty with me in like clip channel comments. I believe that Nick was a better person. I think so. People like to say nowadays that he was always a piece of shit and was always lying. But I think that he just was, like, even if he was narcissistic, I feel like he was in such control of his life and he was happy with how things were going that, like, his narcissistic tendencies didn't really cause any problems. And maybe it was inevitable that he would have issues like this somewhere down the road. But I feel that he was a happier, easier, more easygoing, and more faithful person back in the day. And then I don't know what the fuck happened where he got into swinging and shit, but that was the beginning of the end. But that is a controversial opinion. People say that I'm cuck for saying that. One says, maybe you didn't get the footage today, but at least you read the notes. You know what they say, don't you love the anime if you haven't read the manga? That's what I mean. In truth, the fact that this is drip feeding out and there's these crazy things happening and the county is like backtracking on evidence and the judge is granting it, it's so much more dramatic and interesting and titillating and intriguing the public than like if I just gotten it, or if Rekieta had just played it, like when he got out of jail and like when he took his plea deal, he's like, look, this is the body cam footage. It might come out now. I figured I'd just do it. And you know what I think? Here's my question. I'm not going to run a poll. I just want to put it up to the audience. Do you think that when I have it, he will play it first? I've thought about this long and hard, and there will come a day where the judge, maybe the Judge Wetzel, maybe the appellate court, maybe the Minnesota Supreme Court will say, you have 30 days to surrender that footage to the intervener party, and Nick will have a heads up. It won't be like this where we found a secret way in and we're getting it. He'll know it's coming out. Do you think that he'll try to at that point just play it himself and make money off of it, or do you think that he is so embarrassed and like, I don't know what word to use, but do you think he'll just like continue to seethe about it and just not play it? Because I feel like he will. I feel it, but only at the very end. And you know what? It won't even offend me. Because I would love to see him fucking cope. I would love to see the stream where he copes. And if the end result is I get beaten because he just decides to release it himself on stream and monetize it, then you know what? I'm still happy with that result, chat. A stupid fuck for 5 says, I was in rehab with a chick who talked about how her kid got into Fent and she had to Narcan them so they didn't die. I absolutely believe Nick's daughter got into the coke. There is a reason when they find coke in a house with kids, they test the kids. There's a reason, and it's because the kids come up positive. I want to say it's a shocking high number, where it's like as high as like 50% of children in homes with drugs will test positive for drugs. It is a really, really high number. They don't test the kids for fun. They test the kids because there is a statistical probability that is above a certain threshold where it becomes worthwhile to always automatically test the kids for drugs every time they find drugs in the house with a kid. There's a reason why they do it. They do not do it to fuck around or to plant evidence or because they think it's silly to cut kids' hair or whatever. They do it because it comes up positive a lot of the time. Judy Tester for 3 says, the drug gummies kept out in the open would be tempting to children if they were hungry. Everyone knows Rekieta kids were well fed, so I'm sure this wasn't a problem. Yeah, I don't think there's any stories whatsoever about the kids being hungry. I don't think there's any reason to believe they might inadvertently eat something that they think may be real food and not gummies laced with narcotics. Logistical Nightmare for 5 says, an upturned love seat is a very fitting visual for Nick's relationship. It is. It's Kino. There are many things that are Kino in the footage. I should have gone up and I should have just taken the time to drive for an entire fucking day up to Minnesota. I missed out. Kolya Dante for 4 Kayla Nude Units says, it is disgusting that 2 women would coordinate to lie about the body cam footage like this. If only Nick had some way of dispelling these slanderous aspersions against his housekeeping abilities. If only. Unfortunately, now it seems like these Kiwi, not fags, the Kiwi hags maybe, now control 100% of the narrative by themselves. And Nick is completely helpless to dispel such wild and lofty accusations. Completely helpless. Indomitable for 5 says, I wish you $1 million lawsuit win if you sue Nick and or the county. Me too. That'd be fucking nice. That would be the nicest possible outcome, is if we get like a huge settlement against the county and then I just buy a house with the body cam footage money. Listen, God has a sense of humor. And I've learned to trust the plan. I've always learned to trust the plan. And sometimes things don't go how you as a mere mortal would prefer they go. But sometimes, after a long while, you realize, you know what? It's way better this way. So I trust the plan, shit. I trust the plan. This winding road is full of ups and downs. And it's quite the experience. And there might be a really, really fabulous finale to it. Bunker Housing for 5 says, Barbara Streisand effect is in play and it will only increase. Dude, I'm telling you, it would have been forgotten by now. It would be something that people bring up to troll him, like with other lolcows, like, hey, your house is fucking filthy, your drugs are out in the open. But if he had done the heel turn or whatever, the new leaf shtick well enough, it wouldn't even matter. You can just say, instead of saying, I made some mistakes, but I had a lot of fun. Instead of saying that every time people bring up the drama, he can be like, yeah, I know, and that's my motive. Seeing that footage and seeing the disrepair that I subjected my family to is my motivation for walking the straight edge now. That would be his line of a truly apologetic man, but he's not truly apologetic. He doesn't give a fuck at all. CPEG for 5 says, I have to guess. Oh, Mark Twain, by the way, said that. I have to guess the court expedited your Feltoning specifically because of the horrifying Kiwi Farms connection. Good luck in your upcoming legal adventure. I need all the luck I can get. Thank you. Dizzy Until Death for 5 says, greetings from the beautiful Spicer, Minnesota. Shoutouts to our boys living in Kandiyohi County under the corrupt tyranny of their government, conspiring with the Rekietas to suppress evidence. Really hard out there in the country for those in south central Minnesota.